Hey everyone, welcome to this weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast for the week of June 10th through the 16th of 2024. Alright, so this week we have a continuation of the new moon that started last week. So last week we had a new moon in Sidereal Taurus, and it's been the new beginning of that new lunar month. But this week we are coming into the first quarter moon, which will be around Thursday. So as we approach the week, or as we get into the week, it is really good to start to challenge ourselves. Usually the first quarter is where we come to our first challenges of the lunar month. But more importantly, how can we challenge ourselves to move forward? Any new insights, any new perspectives, and any new beginnings since the new moon last week. Now Mars is changing sign this week to go into where he's much more comfortable in fiery Aries. He's been in watery Pisces these past couple months, and so it's been very important to connect more with our soul and have a little bit more flow in our life. But now with Mars in Aries, it's much more easier to be direct, to start to be proactive in our life and take initiative. Now that will be subtle. It only starts here around Tuesday, but as the week unfolds, we'll definitely be feeling more of that fiery energy. Mars will be squaring Pluto as he does this, so there could be some empowerment, some maybe non-attachment to help facilitate that process. Mercury will be squaring Saturn on Wednesday. Maybe some things we can do to ground our mind and our communications in constructive ways. And then over the weekend, Mercury will be conjunct the Sun, starting a new cycle between these two planets. And here perhaps some deeper insights that could be coming through, but maybe a little bit of fuzziness, a little bit of that cross-circuitedness that can happen with our mind and communications, that the Sun can overpower Mercury like that. But good to find constructive ways of that, and again, perhaps some new inner insights coming out of that. All right, so let's go and take a look at all of this here in more detail when we return. Alrighty, so here is the sky for this week. We're going to look at this for each day of the week, starting first with Monday, June 10th. And as you can see here, we are using the visible sky on this channel, which is very different from mainstream astrology. You won't see this in mainstream because they don't use the visible sky. They're using usually a seasonal system in the West, or a more simplified system even in other forms of sidereal astrology like Vedic astrology. So the signs are different. You will notice the sign changes. Like I just said, the new moon is in Taurus. Maybe you're expecting it to be in Gemini. So if you are new to this channel, definitely check out that link down below for more information on using the visible sky, called True Sidereal Astrology. All right, so let's do a little bit of a recap. We had some sign changes last week. We had Venus enter Taurus. So basically what we have here is we have a lot of the fast movers, the Sun, Mercury, and Venus in Taurus, the bull. And so it's a great time to still be focused on mustering up those inner and outer resources in life. Taurus is about cultivating inner resources like self-worth, self-value, self-reliance, and then of course also externally as well, such as through the abundances of life, or connecting more to nature or our senses, or more of that external natural world. So great to do that with the Sun, viewing life in this way. Of course, starting the new lunar month last week in this energy is really good to move this forward. Mercury is our mind, perhaps a little bit slower right now, maybe communications as well, but again, good to be grounded with those things. And Venus, perhaps enjoying and valuing a bit of that more natural connection to life, or more self-reliant connection to our relationships. Now, Mars is finishing Pisces here this week, starting to get closer to Aries on Tuesday, and so just wrapping some things up this early part of the week regarding that receptivity. Pisces has showed us for not only the past couple months while Mars is here, but back when the fast movers were here, we could say the past 3 or even 4 months, in regards to having more of this, listening to our soul and making sure that wherever we're putting our action is soul guided. Now that's wrapping up here, and we'll get into more of an active side of that here this week. All right, so let's go ahead and start with Monday, June 10th here. We've got the moon finishing Cancer just for the very early part of the day for most of us. Most importantly, shifting into Leo here, and I would say all the way from Tuesday until the weekend really, so Tuesday through Thursday, we've got the moon in more fiery and expressive Leo. So Leo the lion is all about cultivating more of our playful side, more of connecting to who and what we love in life. It's all about self-expression. And we can, of course, express ourselves in a multitude of different ways. Some of us maybe through hobbies or interests, others maybe through literal self-expression, others creatively, and others just through, again, having some fun and being a bit playful. So great to connect to that side of ourself, Leo the lion. But this is maybe a little bit challenging to do. And this is why we're in the first quarter, because Taurus is in a square up to Leo. They're very different energies, right? We talk about the bull and then we talk about the lion. And in this case, we talk about the bull of being grounded. And then we talk about Leo, which is being fiery and expressive. And so the challenge this week, and I would say especially as we get closer to Thursday, is how can we integrate these two very different energies? How can we be grounded, self-reliant, resourceful, but at the same time playful, comedic, fun-loving, expressive with Leo, combining the earth with the fire. If we can find a way to do that this week, I think it'll make it very constructive. But I would say all in all, it's just a good week to challenge ourselves in general. But these might be the major themes here. Now, as we start to get into Tuesday, we've got Mars, again, starting to enter into more fiery Aries. And while he does this, he will be squaring up to Pluto. So in this case, this cycle started back around February 14th of this year. And so you could think back to around mid-February there and see if there's anything that you did start to maybe want to be quite proactive with in your life, in the context of facing fears, in the context of removing obstacles, in the context of perhaps some just change in your life. So thinking about that time can be helpful, because now we do come to the first challenges of that, as Mars will be squaring Pluto for the first time in this cycle. And again, that's usually where we come to our first challenges of the cycle, the same way we are in the first quarter moon. But in this case, it's a great week, this early part especially, to challenge ourselves to, again, listen to that core self that really does want to maybe make some deep changes, maybe free ourselves from some things that are holding us back, and being, again, a bit proactive in a way that might require facing fears, getting outside of comfort zones, moving through wounds or inhibitions in order to reclaim that power that it can really be about. Now, with that being said, there is, of course, the ego involved with this, and Pluto really wants to destroy the ego whenever Pluto's involved. So this is about the true core needs. I want to make that very clear, because while this goes on, usually the ego is still trying to cling on to security blankets, those fears, right? And those things that we're comfortable with. And so good to move through that, and good to be non-attached to things in our life, because the things that really are truly important to us, we are not attached to naturally. In those states when we feel like we have nothing to lose and we just know it's right, it doesn't feel restrictive, it feels empowering, and it doesn't feel attached, it feels empowering. And so this is the difference between the true self, let's say, or closer to the true self, and the ego. And so with Pluto's trying to strip away the ego sides, again, the security blankets, things we're holding on to. So great to be non-attached to that, be willing to let things go. Again, what's really true and really important to us will come through just naturally with almost effortlessness or ease. And but again, having to face fears, move through some of these inhibitions can be the name of the game in order to cultivate and take action towards what really is important to us. So a little bit of mix of non-attachment, a little bit of mix of really listening to that core self. And this can be a very empowering week, early part of the week. Great for, again, transformations, changes, maybe some of that proactive and initiating energy with Mars starting to get into Aries. Now, it's worth mentioning, just as a very, very minor backdrop, you can see these sextiles this week, these blue ones. This is between those fast movers and Chiron, the healer. And they're sextiles, which means they're just openings. So I just want to say, as a backdrop to this week, there's definitely openings for some healing, whether it's emotional, psychological, physical, mental, whatever it might be, but just an opening. And that's how sextiles usually present themselves. So nothing really, in this case, not forcing us into, perhaps that Mars and Pluto is, but in this case, an opening to perhaps do some healing, and perhaps by doing things in our life, with the sun expressing ourselves, with Mercury perhaps communicating, with Venus connecting. This can be quite healing and therapeutic. So just being open to perhaps some opportunities or some new pathways towards healing this week. We could see some possibilities for that with these nice sextiles to healing Chiron. Now, as we do get into Wednesday, Mercury will square up to Saturn. And so here we've got Mercury, the planet of our minds and communication. And again, that square, that challenge to, in this case, responsible Saturn. And so Saturn wants us to take that responsibility with things, to be patient, and to see the long road. And so anything that we can use our minds for this, right? It can be a very constructive middle part of the week for learning, studying, gaining information, maybe sharing information, maybe communicating, maybe some of that trade that Mercury represents. But it will likely require some of that long-term view. So nothing major here with this one, definitely not as powerful or intense maybe as this Mars and Pluto, but something to work with that we can maybe use some of that long-term view, some of that patience and discipline in constructive ways, and especially with things we're thinking about or communicating here, mainly just around Wednesday. Okay, and then we start to again continue this self-expression of Leo throughout this whole early part of the week while we've got that going on. And then when we do get to Thursday, we are in that exact square between the sun and moon. Again, moon in Leo, sun in Taurus. So good for this bit of, again, challenging ourselves, thinking back to around this time last week, around Thursday of last week, we had that new beginning with the new moon. Now this Thursday, we come to our first challenges of that. So good to, get outside of our comfort zone a little bit, maybe, stretch things. It's really where the tire meets the road. Integrate things in our life, whatever that is, and again, can be a very constructive week in that sense. Now, as we start to get into the weekend, we've got the moon starting to go into Virgo, and here's maybe towards the end of the weekend, we'll start to notice a little bit more momentum, right? We've got the fellow Earth signs in harmony, getting in harmony with the sun and moon, and in this case, Virgo, good weekend for a bit of improvement. Virgo is all about seeing how we can get into the detail of things, how we can improve things in our life. And really the only thing we really have control over like that in our lives is really ourselves, and our own environment in the sense of, where we are and the actions we take and what we're surrounding ourselves with. So great to see what can be fixed and improved, I would say primarily with ourselves. It's a great time for personal development, health, diet, routines, good habits, things like this is really good, but also our work and service, right, to others. And so anything involving improving things, facilitating things, getting into the details like that, I think can also be great as well. All right, so a bit of that earth energy there, a bit of that creating some flexibility through improvement over the weekend there. And as we do get into the weekend, Mercury will pass over the sun in Taurus, marking the new beginning of this cycle. And so here the sun really is drowning out the energy. We had this with Venus last week, now it's with Mercury this week. And so it's just worth noting that when it does come to Mercury things, again, our mind, communications, with the sun drowning that out, again, we don't see Mercury in the sky. And this is very symbolic that perhaps the more fiery, solar, outer consciousness self is drowning that out. And so it can sometimes make it a bit difficult to think, to communicate. Maybe we can be overly expressive or passionate, or again, too much of that conscious energy. And sometimes it can just feel like a bit of short-circuitedness, or it's just not really available to us. So it is good to definitely see that this is actually quite a spiritual time. Symbolically, this is Mercury behind the sun. And in certain cultures, like in Greek mythology, this would be Mercury going into the underworld to get information and insights. And so it's actually a time to, I think, listen to that inner self and the, I don't want to say inner consciousness, but really the spirit. And in this way, gaining some new perspectives, gaining some new insights. So good time to maybe meditate or listen. It's not spiritual like yin, it's definitely yang, but it is the deeper insights that come from more of the yang, right? So more of the spirit and the expression and maybe the excitement and things like this. But it really does take that listening for that to come through. So good to, again, be a little bit mindful, let's just say, aware of the mind, right? The conscious self, aware of the mind, aware of those communications that can help things flow there a little bit and help us glean or perhaps, get some new perspectives from the unconscious, so to speak, or from our spirit, which can certainly come in. And again, it can come in the form of insights, maybe even some new beginnings, as this is a new cycle between these two planets that we can start to cultivate these next coming weeks with the Mercury-Sun cycle here. All right, everyone, so that is the week in a nutshell. I will mention as we start to get into Monday, so maybe very late Sunday, we do have Mercury and then Venus conjunct, and they'll both be squaring Neptune while they do this. So I would sum this up as perhaps finding some healthy ways of finding peace in our life, a little bit of healthy receptivity there towards the very end of Sunday. We might go to a bit of a pendulum swing there with maybe wanting to escape or hide away, or maybe just not feeling very much like wanting to relax or go with the flow at all. So it can go either extreme, too much, not enough of that spiritual energy, but finding the constructive way of doing that late Sunday. I'll talk more about this early next week. All right, everyone. So that's the week. Most important thing is it's first quarter, which means implementation of the last week's new moon. We're now starting to integrate. It can actually be a lot manifesting this week in the context of the new lunar month starting since Thursday of last week. We've got this Mars square Pluto, which is considered a challenging energy, but again, it's all about how we work with it. It can be very constructive, removing obstacles, claiming personal power, facing fears, transformation. This is all in the cards. Having some non-attachment to help facilitate that process can be great. We've got Mercury squaring Saturn, maybe some of that disciplined mind or communication here around Wednesday. And then as we're challenging ourselves towards that, towards this lunar month, we've got Mercury over the Sun here around Friday. And so this can help us glean some insights into our deeper selves. But again, some mindfulness and awareness to our thoughts and our communications can help keep things nice and balanced with this one as well. All right, so everyone have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to click the like button if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you haven't yet gotten your True Sidereal report, there's a link down below to get that. It's absolutely free. Just type in your birth details and you'll see your report, link below. But again, have a great one, and I'll see you all next time for the next astrology forecast. Take care.